welcome everyone. My name is Anne-Marie Towers. I'm a Professor of Social Care at the University of Kent. I'm absolutely thrilled to be chairing today's event on how to best support older people's care moves on World Social Work Day. This is the key day in the year that social workers worldwide stand together to share learning and celebrate the fantastic work that you do every day. Today's session is also part of the broader agenda of Social Work Week in 2024. So if you're someone who uses X, formerly known as Twitter, please do use the hashtag Social Work Week 2024, which actually, Wenjing, if you could share your screen, we could pop up for everybody to have a look at. And we also have a hashtag for this specific project, which I think is hashtag Better Care Moves. Let's have a look. Yeah, hashtag Better Care Moves. So you can have a look there. So if you're using X, then please do feel free to send those messages and use those hashtags to draw attention, share the knowledge and learning from today's session. So just before I run through the agenda, I just want to acknowledge the funder for this research, who is the NIHR School for Social Care Research, who we're extremely grateful for the funding for. And just to say that the views expressed here are those of the authors and not necessarily those of SSCR, the NIHR, or the Department of Health and Social Care. So, in terms of the session today, we're aiming to finish promptly at 12 p.m. There are going to be 3 different presentations with time for Q&A at the end. And the speakers represent 3 different perspectives. So we've got Julia Gregg, who is a social worker, Kate Wortham, who is an expert by experience, and Dr. Wenjing Zhang, who led the study and is a research fellow at the University of Kent. So really nice to get 3 different perspectives on the same piece of work. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to our first speaker, who is Julia. Over to you, Julia.
Thanks, Anne-Marie. Morning, everyone. I'm Julia Gregg. I'm a social worker, formerly with East Sussex County Council, now working as an independent. But I was one of the co-researchers, practitioner researchers on this project, Better Care Moves. And today I'd just like to talk to you about why we looked into Better Care Moves and a little bit about why co-production. And I'm also going to share with you some of my reflections as a practitioner researcher on this project. So if we could have the next slide, please, Wenjing. So transitions between care settings can be really challenging for older people, and also sometimes unavoidable. While staying in one's home is often heralded the gold standard, it's not necessarily the only or best environment for someone, and there are also many positive reasons for moving. But regardless of this, transitions between care settings don't only involve that physical move, but are also really significant life events, which include social, psychological, and emotional aspects. This can cause many feelings of loss. It can feelings of loss of relationships, loss of independence, belongings, choices, and dignity. And all of these can affect well-being and identity. So social care practitioners have a significant role in supporting older people and their carers through these transitions, and want the transitions for older people to be as successful and as positive experiences as possible. But social care practitioners are a diverse and somewhat fragmented group. They can include social workers, support workers, care coordinators, nurses, occupational therapists, care managers, and lots of other professionals. And we all work in very different care settings, such as hospitals or in the community and in accommodation provider settings. The roles we play as social workers and social care practitioners are also really diverse. We can be involved in identifying and highlighting the need for the person to move in the first place. We can be providing advice and guidance, signposting to other services, assessing need, identifying suitable placements and securing funding for those placements, and obviously reviewing those placements once a person has moved. And all of these can provide their own challenges in the context of competing demands, expectations, and resources. And these challenges have been further exacerbated in recent years by the COVID pandemic. So given the range of roles that we assume and the fact that older people's experiences of moves are very context and person specific and therefore very unique, this gives rise to a number of challenges for social care practitioners who are attempting to navigate the most effective approach and to provide the right level of support and guidance. Social care practitioners can sometimes lack an understanding of the needs of older people and their carers at these times, and as well the confidence, the guidance and resources, particularly in cases which are very complex or unanticipated. So social care practitioners have raised the need for a better and more consistent approach to preparing for, communicating and supporting older people and their families. But there is a lack of practice guidance in England on how to improve the services pre, during and post-transition. So the objectives of the Better Care Moves project, which was a co-designed by social care practitioners, public members and researchers, were to investigate how social care practitioners currently support and could better support older people's moves, identify the move-related experience and expectations of older people and their carers, and to co-design practice recommendations which are aligned to the needs of older people in order to guide practitioners during the process of supporting older people and their families during these transitions. So therefore, this project has enabled the co-production of best practice guidance, which is based on research evidence on how to best support older people and their families. This work and the resources that we've produced will assist in building a better understanding between both frontline practice and social care research and for social care practitioners and their managers in practice. Next slide, please, Wenjing. So as I said, the Better Care Moves project was a co-produced research project. And just to put that in some context, in the social care arena, co-production is a key concept in the development of public services, and it has the potential to make some important contributions to all the big challenges that we face in social care provision. The Care Act specifically includes the concept of co-production in its statutory guidance. It suggests that it should be a key part of implementing the Care Act and should be used to develop preventative strength-based services to support assessment, shape the local care market and plan information and advice services. But definitions of what exactly co-production means can vary, but the term is used to describe a partnership working between people who draw on care and support, carers and citizens in order to improve public services. The involved definition of co-production, which is given here, specifically relates to research and reflects that belief that members of the public have skills and knowledge of equal value, with which they can help design and deliver applied research. The principles of co-production include the sharing of power, including all perspectives, respecting and valuing others, reciprocity, and building relationships. Furthermore, research has shown that there are a number of benefits for people who are directly involved in co-produced research, and this can include establishing supportive relationships and social networks, increased self-esteem, and the gaining of knowledge. Thank you, Wenjing. So through the existing networks and partnerships across Kent and East Sussex, we involved older people, family carers and social care practitioners as co-researchers. Our core team, which is shown here, were involved in all stages of the research project. They consulted on the research design and findings, participated in data collection activities, which included the literature review and undertaking interviews. They all worked towards the co-production of practice guidance, co-authored outputs, and have supported the dissemination and impact activities that we've been undertaking. Next slide. Thank you, Wenjing. So as a practitioner researcher, I'd like to share with you some of my own reflections of co-production and being involved in research. So I've always been interested in research, but had never really had a proper opportunity to do proper research. So when my principal social worker made me aware of the opportunity to participate in this research with Kent, I jumped at the chance. My first contact with Wenjing was in November 2020, and what quickly followed was the opportunity to contribute to and comment upon the research proposal, and then comment on the feedback that we received from the proposal reviewers. A final decision was made in March 2021, and the proposal was accepted. So next came the recruitment of experts by experience to the co-production team. We also spent time preparing for the ethics committee and confirmed the final search terms for the research and started to identify sources of literature. I had the opportunity to attend the ethics committee with Wenjing, where we answered the panel's questions about the research. And up to that point, I was feeling a little bit out of my depth, and the thought of attending an ethics committee was quite daunting. But the opportunity really enabled me to draw on my knowledge and my expertise as a practitioner, and I was able to answer some really challenging questions about mental capacity, and that certainly built my confidence. We received ethics approval and the literature review commenced. I was charged with gathering grey literature, and that was followed by screening, reviewing and coding all of the literature that we had gathered. Alongside the literature review, the interviews started, and I was able to interview practitioners and service users, and again was able to draw on my practice experience to undertake those interviews. I've also had the opportunity, rather pushing myself out of my comfort zone, to co-present our research at conferences and via webinars such as the one today. This included the British Society of Gerontology's annual conference, which was certainly the largest conference I'd ever presented at. I've gained so many skills and experiences through the Better Care Moves project, and I can't believe that we're 3.5 years on from that first meeting, my initial contact with Wenjing. I feel really proud about what we have achieved as a co-production team, the research that we've undertaken and the outputs that we've produced. And I'm also proud of myself for my involvement and my contributions and being able to push myself out of my comfort zone and learn new skills. So I certainly hope it isn't my last experience of research, and especially of co-produced research. I'm now going to hand over to Kate, one of our experts by experience in the co-production team. And to you, Kate.
Thank you, Julia. Next slide, please, Wenjing. Thank you. I'm one of 4 volunteer public advisors with our tab to us is saying expert by lived experience. And our experience covered between the 4 of us. One person was living in independent living extra care scheme and had been there for 7 years and seen many comings and goings. Somebody was a carer for her 4 years for her mother with vascular dementia, initially at home, but eventually that she had to find a specialist nursing home. Others of us had a parent with vascular dementia requiring nursing home care, which again meant sourcing and finding the suitable home. A carer for a person transferred out of hospital care under the new discharge to assess scheme following a very severe stroke. And that had many complex issues around it and actually occurred during the project. and then moving up an older person who was self-funding into care home in a different county. And somehow the self-funding label meant that we just had to do everything ourselves. And whilst there was support from the original county, it was at a distance, and somehow the language and the approaches were different, but no way to bridge that gap. We just had to try by lived experience. Next slide, please. Oh, just before I go on to the key issues, I also wanted to say just something about the co-production element of the project. It was very rewarding. We were engaged and involved and invited to contribute throughout as the public experts. We were able to see the impact of our contributions. For example, while agreeing care should be person-centred, we brought in the role and impact on family and friends, which sometimes can be sidelined. So that was a constant theme with us, but we could also see the changes that our comments and our opinions and our experience actually made to what was produced within the project. So we felt very genuinely involved, and it didn't peter out. It had continued to the end, to me speaking here today. Next slide, please. So key issues that were identified. As Julia's already said, care moves are significant life events, and they're impacting on the older person. Their life may never be the same again, but also on their family and friends. And for the family and friends, there may be not only anxiety about it, but also a feeling of guilt and a change in the relationship with the older person after the move. Communication is key. And that's not only about saying, but also on listening. And I will put it in two brackets. One is between professionals and the older person and their family, and very important, but also between professionals, between teams, organisations, health and care sectors. It's quite a complex world out there, and we need to actually keep those communication doors open. And it seems to have had a slight change over I don't know whether it has changed with COVID, but I think the way we communicate isn't quite the same. The lack of knowledge and understanding of the care sector is often an issue. Older people and their families not knowing options that are available, being very confused about the processes and procedures and who's responsible for what. And it's not always evident. You can have a nice pack of information that comes at the beginning, but it's quite it's difficult if you haven't got someone to guide you. Professionals are not always fully understanding the different types of care provision, their purpose and eligibility. And this was particularly highlighted by the person the public advisor, who is living in the independent living extra care scheme, who had seen many occasions when people had, whilst many had been well placed, whilst there was a failure to get the placement right first time. And not getting the placement right can lead to tremendous confusion and distress for the older person and their family. And that's particularly acute if the person has dementia. Failure to recognise the role of the family and the impact on them, as I've said before, is a key issue. And the family are going to be left, once the care move has occurred, picking up many of the issues. Not fully engaging older person and their family, but expecting them to provide care solutions. And that may be that the person hasn't had, the family haven't been involved or been updated on the care needs assessment and what that means and what it means in terms of care provision. and what solutions might be out there. Some people will be doing this for more than once, but for most of us, it's actually doing this as a first time, and we just don't know what care is out there and where to go and how to evaluate it. The CQC may give us loads of information, but how do we translate that into the provision that we're needing for our relative, the person we're caring for? The lack of support and guidance throughout the process is a problem, and big gaps with nobody being in contact can be very disconcerting when you're in the middle of it, and you don't quite know where to go, who to ask. The telephone is not necessarily the answer. Many people are not that comfortable with the telephone, and what a difference it makes if you can see somebody and talk to them. Next slide, please, Wenjing. So we had some suggestions. A key thing, I think, is recognising that care moves are about the management of change for the older person. It's a change, which we think about in other contexts, but we don't necessarily think that this is what we're managing here. So it's a management of change for the older person, their family and friends, because things won't be the same afterwards. Professionals ensure older people and their family understand and have information to make informed decisions about suitable types of care provision, including care home if it's appropriate. But it's actually making sure there's a real understanding. They may have the information, but does that information mean the same to you as it does to me? Professionals need to keep up to date with their knowledge and understanding of the care options. And again, that landscape is, as Julia said, is changing the whole time. It's there, and options, care homes, care provision. It's not a static landscape. And for us, going through the discharge to assess process again was a new and different experience. Support is provided to older people up to and throughout the care move, even if self-funding. And that really is so important. And from the initial referral to completed transfer, providing timely, clear communication everyone can understand. And as with any management of change project, it's about communication, communication, and communication. Thank you. Thank you, Wenjing.
Brilliant. Thank you, Kate. And to following the insights from Kate and Julia and from our wider co-production group members, I'm going to briefly introduce our data sources, how we collected the information, what are our key findings, which some of them have been summarized by Kate and Julia already, and I'll showcase the co-produced free online resources for you as well, so you could have a look after this webinar, and even best to inform your practice or conversations in the future. So alongside our regular co-production workshops and discussions, we conducted a very comprehensive literature review. Julia mentioned that we had over 8,000 records from both different academic sources as well as great literature like websites of different government departments, advisory organizations, and so on. We also interviewed with overall 27 people, including 11 family carers, 6 older people, and 10 social care practitioners. They all had experience of having care moves between different care settings, such as care homes or from hospital to different social care settings, extra care housing, retirement village, and so on. And also for social care practitioners, we involved a variety groups of them that include social workers, care coordinators, case managers, and so many different roles and from different organizations. So from these conversations, our goal was to identify the experience and expectations of older people and their carers during the moves, as well as to explore how social care practitioners could better support these care transitions or moves. So based on that, we identified the key themes, especially from our interview and co-production work into these themes. For example, the challenges that Kate has mentioned for different stakeholders, and also around how to improve social care practice and what support is needed for social care practitioners. Before getting into any detail about each of these themes, I'm going to play an animation video that we co-produced for this study about the journey of older people's care moves. It summarized some of our key findings in a very engaging way, I would say. Let's go.
All of us experience transitions throughout our lives. As we get older, many people will experience transitions into and between social care settings. For example, moving from their own homes into retirement housing, housing with on-site care and support, or into a care home. Even being discharged from hospital and receiving social care for the first time in one's own home is an important life transition. All these moves affect older people and their family and friends on multiple levels: emotionally, psychologically, socially, and financially. Social care practitioners, including social workers, care managers, care coordinators, and staff, have a significant role in supporting older people and their family and friends through these moves. It is vitally important that they understand the challenges that older people and their carers face during the journey. This video, based on research evidence and close working with older people and their families, introduces the challenges people face and provides recommendations for good practice. First, before the move. Just like people arriving at a train station, some may have advice and information beforehand. For example, during care needs assessments or care plan development. Others may feel lost and overwhelmed without proper signage or staff. Many moves happen with little preparation or notice, making the process even more challenging for older people and their carers. Some people pay for their care, while others receive publicly funded care. The complex funding arrangements and financial burdens can be difficult to navigate and understand. Second, during the move. There are different care and housing options available, such as traditional care homes and extra care housing. People may also experience multiple moves as their needs change. Practitioners in various roles and organizations play crucial roles throughout the journey. However, it can sometimes feel like people are speaking in different languages. People working in different parts of the system do not always communicate well with each other, and the older person and their carer often feel unheard. Like trains, delays and frustrations are common. Lastly, after the move. Moving can be traumatic for both older people and their carers, causing feelings of loss around independence, dignity, and relationships. Carers sometimes feel their role and relationships are not valued or recognised after moves to new care settings. So, how can we ensure good move-related social care practice? First and foremost, good practice should always be person-centred, identifying what this individual wants. Practitioners need to understand the diverse settings and multiple routes along the journey, and be considerate of the challenges older people face. Moves can be more challenging for people with protected characteristics, such as people with dementia, Black, Asian, and other ethnic minority groups, and lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender groups. Each person's moves should be handled with sensitivity. Remember, it's not just about the individual, it's also about the family and friend carers. Ultimately, communication is key. Practitioners should provide timely information and advice on when and what the options are, and discuss the potential consequences of each option with a clear timeline. Knowing and understanding the options can empower older people and their carers to make proactive decisions, leading to a smoother move. To learn more on how to better support older people and carers during care moves, please visit our project website for more resources.
I hope you will get quite a nice taste of the resources we've co-produced. And as mentioned in this short video, there are some suggestions from us as a co-production team on how to improve move-related practice. And these are all based on our research findings. For example, one of the key themes that is shared by many people we've interviewed is there is a need for person-centered and more flexible approach for practitioners, like the quote here from a social care discharge coordinator who mentioned that we can't use a blanket approach for everybody because not everyone needs the same thing. It's always making sure that person is in the center of any decisions that are being made for them. And this will involve for practitioners in different roles to have a better understanding of diverse care settings, as well as voluntary organizations and alternative options beyond care home for older people and their families to consider, to ask, get resources and information from. Also, more effort is required to improve effective communication between stakeholders and services. Care is relational by nature, so it's really vital to recognize the importance of actively listening to older people and their carers, as well as building trust through the process. Relating to person-centered care, it's important also to deliver inclusive practice when it's move-related, to consider intersectionality of different protected characteristics of people we serve. For example, it might be already older people, people from ethnic minority groups, who are from lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender groups, and so on. And those intersectionality can bring more complexity and challenges for people during those moves. Also, it's important to raise awareness of supporting diverse groups. For example, the quote here from a social worker who mentioned that it's need to be relating to the person-centered approach, but always highlighting it's specific for this one instead of labeling them. Just because somebody is a certain race or a particular religion, it doesn't mean that that's necessarily important to them in that day. So it's about clarifying through our assessment process that what is important to you and specifically for each individual. We also identified some good practice examples of, for example, around inclusive care as well as move-related care. Some local authorities that consider inclusive practice when commissioning social care services for older people. For example, like whether these care homes, extra care housing, they are raising sufficient awareness of, for example, LGBT related service or support, That is some good example we identified and would like to say more rolling out widely across different regions. A key message from our study shared by different stakeholders, including not only practitioners themselves, but also older people and family carers, is that organizations need to support social care practitioners. This includes allowing more time to support each person, providing supervision and peer support for staff. For example, they could discuss complex cases within the team and also potentially having some information that is gathered at the organizational level. For example, mapping and sharing information about the care system, about available organizations, including voluntary sectors and the processes of different care transitions related to that region's specific practice. We do have some quote here. Here is from a case manager working at a local authority saying it will be really handy if there was some kind of mechanism or team or something that we could use, even if it's just we have some preferred providers who are aware of what those circumstances may or may not be like. This is whether they will understand the specific challenges older people and their family carers might be going through during the care transitions. As another quote showing here, it's also very important to facilitate networking opportunities for social care practitioners so they can reach other services professionals, learn from others, and promote their own services at these platforms, which, for example, like the webinar series we're having today. So based on our research findings, we could produce some online materials. It's being hosted by a website called Social Care Talk. I'll share my screen in a minute to show you how to navigate the website and the resources. This web page we have, it includes an overview of why and how we need to improve move-related practice, including the animation video I showed earlier about the journey of care moves for older people and the messages derived from our interviews and literature review on how to improve practice and better support staff. So here is the website. If you can still see my screen popping up. As we scrolling down on the right side, the sidebar here gives certain tabs about each kind of key topics we have. On the first page, it talks about why it's important, where you could also hear Julia's talk, as well as all for our public advisors who talk about their experience of care moves as well as supporting moves, and also what messages they'd like to deliver. On the following tab, there is the animation video we shared, as well as quite a lot of interview quotes, and it has been audio recorded by some public advisors instead of the interviewees' voices themselves. And for each of these quotes, you will be able to see a short summary beside the screen. You can make it full screen, as well as click the view transcript button below it, where you will see the word version about the quote from the interviewee. And for example, here on this page, we talk a lot about challenges people face during care moves, and we hope practitioners would be able to navigate this through and see what are the real life stories being shared there, the importance around building, having effective communication, building trust, and providing practical help, information, and advice, as well as the challenges that people face when there are multiple moves related for many people, and how to navigate that through. It's not only challenging for service users and carers, but also for practitioners working in different sectors, organizations. They might see it from very different perspective as well. So please, have your time, and that will be very useful. And another page is about how to improve move-related practice. As I briefly mentioned earlier, professional knowledge, what is required. There are more details on our website, information for older people and carers. Again, it's what type of information people would prefer, like the older man here who's living with dementia highlighted. For people with dementia, what format of information they prefer to have and how to communicate that can be very challenging and or very important. Planning care moves, a very key message from our study is to have proactive and making decisions in advance about making moves. It's not all moves are like from a negative way. There are many successful moves, or people feel their quality of life, their experience have improved after the right move. But in those cases, mostly people are talking about having informed, proactive actions before the crisis moment, as well as support for carers, which Kate has highlighted in her talk as well. Support for practitioners, more information around the specific examples on this page, as well as move-related inclusive practice. We do have a page here on person-centered care, how to take into account of protected characteristics, and certain examples on our resource page. So talking about our resource page, we hosted these resources on the University of Kent website, which when you click this link there on our main webpage, you will get landed there. As we mentioned, we reviewed a very wide range of useful resources, and we categorize them here, and we're hoping to keep them updated to share with people who might find it useful around the guides of selecting care settings, how to choose care home, as well as alternative care settings other than care homes, when moving from hospitals, hospital discharge related to social care settings, inclusive practice, what are the information around that for supporting people, for example, with dementia, as well as some financial perspective information for self-funders, and after post-move, at moving in stage, what is useful. And then lastly, I would very briefly thank you for everyone who involved to our co-production group. And also, as I mentioned, there are other public advisors and other experts who contributed to these co-produced resources. And we will put the link in the chat for these resources. And if I bring this down for next slide, thank you. If you'd like to get in touch with our project team, feel free to email me and I can direct you there, and we will move on to the questions section.